Hey now, we are getting over, and I am the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, here to lead you through these hard times. With your 2025 WWE SummerSlam Night 2 Instant Analysis. That's right, Getting Over is back once again, just 24 hours after delivering you a WWE SummerSlam Night 1 Instant Analysis to break down every single thing that happened Sunday night as WWE's second biggest show of the year reached its conclusion. We have an absolutely loaded episode for you, as we pretty much always do right here on the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. So let's not waste any time getting into it. Off the top, allow the Silver King to remind you that this show
is all about Defy.
So please, folks,
stop being marks for yourselves and go back to being a mark for me.
Go back to being marks for the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, our co-host, Vintage Chris Vanini, and Getting Over in its entirety. Head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave a 5-star rating on Apple. Take a little extra time. Leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. Now, this would normally be the part of the program where I bring Vintage in and we start commiserating about our overall thoughts on SummerSlam. Unfortunately, he is still in Europe, enjoying his vacation. I believe he's still in Italy, and I hope he's having a fantastic time doing that. So Silver King will be operating solo once again, which also means I won't be cracking open a cold one, because if I did, it would just sit here and get warm. I need to speak extemporaneously for an hour, hour and a half, however long this episode is going to go. So no shout out to any brewery or anything like that tonight. We're just going to get on with the program. I will remind you immediately off the top that we do have a WWE SummerSlam Night 1 Instant Analysis already in the podcast feed. You don't necessarily need to listen to that before you listen to this. So if you missed that show, then please, once this one wraps up, go ahead and hit play. If you choose to listen to them in order, you can feel free to pause this right now and go play that one. But I certainly hope you listen to both shows before we fully get into Raw on Monday night as a quick turn to the first show immediately after SummerSlam. Now, not only will we be breaking down everything that happened on Night 2 of WWE SummerSlam, at the end of tonight's show, we will wrap everything up with a show grade for Night 2 and an overall grade for the entirety of SummerSlam. All of you, our listeners, are Getting Overheads. You had the opportunity to vote in pre- and post-show polls around SummerSlam, and the way you did that was by following us on Twitter at Getting Overcast. We are also available on Blue Sky at Getting Over. In both spots, you get episode drops, news, analysis, highlights, and all of that good stuff. You can also send in questions and comments to the show, and while the turnaround to do these instant analysis does not give us the opportunity to read those and answer those on this episode, we will be doing that Tuesday when we take a second look at WWE SummerSlam and we break down all of Fallout on Monday Night Raw, along with everything else we will not discuss from SmackDown. I will also quickly remind you to subscribe to us on YouTube at Getting Overcast. Not only do you get full-length audio episodes, you also get full-length video interviews. Every time we sit down with someone, we will post the entire video on YouTube at Getting Overcast. Make sure you visit, subscribe. We would greatly appreciate that. All right, enough taking care of business. Let's officially get into the 2025 WWE SummerSlam Night 2 Instant Analysis. As always, we will break down every single match on the show. We will analyze it. We'll give you a match grade. We'll discuss what we believe might happen going forward. And of course, if necessary, we will break down the go-home segments from SmackDown leading into those matches, just to give you a full picture of what was happening on this show. Now, from an attendance perspective at SummerSlam, there were 6,000 more fans in MetLife Stadium for Night 2 compared to Night 1, 51,000 on Saturday versus 57,000 on Sunday. WWE actually announced 61,000 on Sunday, so, I mean, that's not too egregious, and it's certainly possible that between, suites and workers and all the extras, it's certainly possible they were at 61, and so I don't know what number they announced for Saturday, but let's just make believe it was 55. So they did somewhere between 100 and, let's say, 110, 115,000 people at SummerSlam across these two nights, which is immensely impressive. You have to give them credit for that. Night 2 entered the week at 50,000 flat, so they sold or distributed between 7,000 and 11,000 tickets in about 5 days. Given the card was loaded on night 2 compared to night 1, that's hardly a surprise because everyone probably spent their money on the one show that they wanted to go to most. And Triple H opened Sunday's show. He did the same hype job as Cardi B, who we never saw do hosting duties outside of the Saturday Open. Like, I have to believe there was a change. I mentioned previously she was doing a lot of stuff with Bianca Belair. So with Belair injured, perhaps whatever was planned for Cardi got knocked off the show. But there were other people she certainly could have worked with. And it was interesting that they just chose to have her for 90 seconds on Saturday. And that was it, despite months of it being promoted that she was hosting SummerSlam. Something else I just wanted to note real quick from an aesthetic standpoint, when WWE uses that special lens or camera for championship match introductions, it creates this audio delay from the picture. They got to figure that out. Since we already discussed the set and everything else on the night 1 instant analysis, we're done here. Let's get to the match-by-match breakdown. And we will start, as we always do, with the main event, and then we will go based on the order I choose, because after all,
This is my show. My show.
so we had the WWE Championship. John Cena defending against Cody Rhodes in a street fight. Now, as I just mentioned, we always go over notable moments from Go Home SmackDowns before tackling PLE matches on these instant analysis episodes. So I wanted to provide you with my complete unfiltered take on what Cena did in the opening segment with Rhodes on that show. In other words, the notes I'm about to reference, they were jotted down Friday night, and I recorded this take Sunday at noon Eastern, 6 hours before SummerSlam Night 2 started. They were my unfettered thoughts going into SummerSlam, and I'm presenting them in this way because the segment was so unique and it was such a departure from the story that they had been telling that I wanted to make sure I had a take on it before we actually saw what happened in the main event. So with that, here's my take from Friday Night SmackDown. Cena opened SmackDown getting a truly massive reaction. Rhodes was basically equal. It somehow felt bigger than the go home to WrestleMania, despite them somehow being in the ring together even less this time around. Cena recounted the attack that led to the street fight, thanking Cody for the kick in the ass. He said he's been about hard work, honesty, and respect for 25 years, but he flushed all that down the toilet 5 months ago because he bought into someone else's idea to make shocking TV. Cena said everyone in his inner circle turned on him, and while he does want to take the WWE Championship home when he retires, it's not because he wants to ruin wrestling. He just wants to make sure fans don't forget about him. He thanked Cody for being a real friend, forcing him into a real fight, and said, now I need to actually show up, the real John Cena. Cena then said that night, August 1st, was his real return to WWE because now he's going to be at his best with something to prove. And he had a really strong closing line. Quote, on Sunday, the only platinum rapper showing up to whip your ass is me. The crowd bought into this immediately and completely. Cody brought a couple really shitty beers into the ring. He said, welcome back. They shook hands and toasted. And then Cody just walked out. That was it. My immediate assumption was Cena was playing Rhodes the entire time. He'd low blow Cody when they toasted, the cheers would turn to boos, and it would suddenly get red hot again. Wade Barrett basically said as much on commentary, word for word, especially when Cena walked off. But that didn't happen, either in the moment or later backstage, and we never saw them again. There was even a moment when Cena stood on stage celebrating with the title and slapping hands with fans, where I thought, wait a minute, Cody's not about to attack him and turn heel, right? And that didn't happen either, obviously. In terms of analyzing the segment itself, frankly, I thought it was the perfect way for Cena to recant his bad guy antics. He pinned the entirety of this real disappointing heel run on The Rock and Travis Scott, basically suggesting they influenced him and then left him in the lurch. And that's not entirely untrue when it comes to The Rock. And it seemed to be true when it came to Travis Scott, based on recent reporting. Plus, that platinum rapper line at the end, that was a killer. And you saw a glimpse of the babyface Cena that should elicit incredible reactions down the stretch of his career over these remaining 5 months. It also created the impetus for the real John Cena to appear at SummerSlam, which is what Cody had been wanting since WrestleMania. At the same time, if 5 months of heel work boiled down to, gotcha, I'm actually not a heel, wasn't my idea in the first place, that's pretty damn weak. So the segment left me rather perplexed for one specific reason. This is exactly what I would have expected from Cena, either immediately after losing the title at SummerSlam, big babyface turn in front of a huge crowd, or next Friday on SmackDown when he's forced to kind of confront the path he sowed for himself as a heel. It makes far more sense for Cena to come to such a reckoning after losing the title, especially because then he could put over Rhodes simultaneously, saying he's upset to lose the championship, but he knows it's in good hands. Running this storyline before the match, it made me believe it would drastically affect fan sentiment going into the bout Sunday. If this didn't happen, Cena may have gotten some cheers anyway, but he would have entered the street fight firmly on the heel side, Cody firmly as a face. Instead, they both entered as baby faces, which I figured would mean Cody was poised to again get a mixed reaction, just like he did in Las Vegas, given this is going to be Cena's final SummerSlam. Furthermore, a simple attack reversing 5 months of heel work, not a defeat in a match, it felt somewhat thin as reasoning. Cody just beat him up and made him sign a paper, and now he's a babyface? Cena, don't forget, was the biggest heel turn since Hulk Hogan. And to end that run, not only in a promo segment, but a promo segment to open the go-home show before the first 2-day SummerSlam ever, that made it really tough to buy on its face. And it led me to believe this was all a means of luring Rhodes into a false sense of security. So he would let his guard down and Cena could get off some heel antics in the street fight. But if that was to happen, then it seemed like WWE wasted a perfect babyface turn for no reason, given how quick Cena would be going back on his word. And then if he did, how could you actually turn him face after the fact? The other option, of course, is Cody going heel. And I would dig deeper into the potential for that happening, but I just find that to be entirely unlikely, even if Cena would be the perfect catalyst for that to happen. So the last thought I had going into SummerSlam was this. If this was not a charade and Cena is a babyface the entire street fight, this is another example of WWE putting together a perfect piece of booking in 2025, but executing it at the entirely wrong time. If he's going to remain a babyface throughout this entire match, there is simply no way it made more sense to have Cena come to this realization before being defeated, as opposed to after losing the title, particularly because it would affect how the fans respond to Cody. So that was my take, as I said, taped early Sunday before SummerSlam even began. Now let's go ahead and get to what happened Sunday night in the main event. Rhodes got a Dusty-aided special entrance using lines from the Hard Times promo and I believe a WCW promo with Dustin Rhodes. Cody eschewed the gold plating on his gear for silver. I thought it was a much cleaner look. Cena's entrance teased the blackout at first, but it soon popped all color, and he came out in classic Cena style, towel in front, not behind, shouting out Stu the cameraman, running to the ring, all of it. This was produced excellently. WWE straight up nailed this, despite struggling elsewhere on the show. They both got cheered during their entrances, Cena more so, but Rhodes got fully booed on his ring announce. Not even 50-50. Booed. Cena was still announced as the last real champion, which didn't make any sense given the face turn. That's the one part of it they probably should have cut out. But as we got into the match, Cena was a face, Cody was a face, but only Cena was the one treated as a face by the audience, which spoke to exactly what I just said earlier Sunday. Now, I didn't know at this point whether Cody would turn or Cena would go back heel or whatever the case might be. But this was precisely what I was concerned about, doing the babyface turn Friday night as opposed to Sunday night potentially at the end of the match. So they stood off at the bell before Cena pulled Rhodes in for a hug and said something like, "Let's do it, bro," before they started brawling. They each threw the other into the steel steps before Cena used a crutch from Tyrese Halliburton. Cena then pressed and threw the base of the steel steps out of the ring into Rhodes, who sold a forearm. Really cool spot. I believe it was a callback to his Umaga, and I want to say Bray Wyatt matches as well. Cody won a steel chair joust, only to get run into a steel chair in the corner before taking 5 moves of doom. Rhodes answered with a bionic elbow and a Cody cutter. Cena picked him up for an attitude adjustment and a flat 2 count. Cody hit, as Wade called it, his Terry Funk style moonsault, plus disaster kick and a double jump Cody cutter. Cena answered with an electric chair, so Rhodes hit a straight pile driver that elicited a tremendous live reaction because WWE doesn't overuse the move. Cena played possum selling it. He baited Cody into an AA with no cover. Rhodes answered with a pop-up Liger bomb, but Cena moved into the STF on the kickout for a rope break. Cody ran Cena over the barricade, so Cena hit him in the head with a mic, and he nailed a perfect ringside code red, and he sold the shock of him actually being able to pull off that move in 2025. That was fantastic. He followed with an AA off the English through the Spanish announce table. Cody avoided John charging back in the ring. He had a crossroads false finish. Cena powered out of a superplex, hitting a flying leg drop and adding a fourth AA, the second time with a fall attempt for a false finish. A table got propped in the corner before they brawled into the crowd at the 23-minute mark. Cody suplexed Cena into a propped barricade that was in the crowd before they fought underneath the stage. They emerged up from the stage out of the Cody Vader with Rhodes on Cena's shoulders, taking a fifth AA onto the ramp. Convoluted, yes, certainly a cool visual spot. Cena then had to fireman's carry Rhodes all the way back to the ring. And I just thought to myself, can you imagine doing that at age 48, 25 minutes into a main event match? I certainly could not. Rhodes immediately respawned once he got back on the mat, throwing Cena through the prop table before hitting a second crossroads for a false finish. Cody delivered a chair shot through the ropes before unsheathing and unrolling the bottom turnbuckle. He drilled Cena with the exposed steel and got booed for doing it. He showed remorse, not wanting Cena to stand again, but when he did, Cody leveled him again. He tried a third time. Cena actually caught him with a drop toe hold. He locked in the STF using the bottom rope to choke Rhodes, but it was way too thick and way too loose. Cody rolled him over into a bulldog choke, also using the rope. Cody escaped AA, countering into crossroads, hitting 3 of them in succession for a shocking false finish. Fans actually chanted Super Cena, cheering for exactly what they used to hate. Rhodes grabbed the WWE Championship. He was faced with the same spot at WrestleMania. This time he swung it. Cena ducked. He hit 2 AAs. Then he tossed the WWE title aside, and he landed a Super AA from the second rope for an insane false finish. Cena brought in another table to repeat the Super AA, just to get even more emphasis on it. But Cody escaped. He had a flying top rope Cody cutter through the table. Then from behind, he saluted Cena, and he hit one more crossroads to win back the WWE Championship in a 38-minute epic. Cody chose not to lift the title. He waited for Cena to hand it to him. They had an emotional moment in which Rhodes said he was sorry for something, but he also told him thanks for everything. Cena also told him, this was the best I had, basically saying, I put it all out there for you. They put each other over, and there was a ton of pyro for Cody as the new champion. Rhodes dipped out of the ring, and let's leave it there for a second because we already have plenty to discuss, and we're going to have plenty more to talk about on the back end. The response to Rhodes winning, it was understandably muted, just given the crowd was almost 100% into Cena. But I found it to actually be a positive sign that Cody was not booed out of the building on the 3 count like he was during the match when everyone was rooting for John. He was not the fans' preferred winner, but they still respected the fact that he won the match. This may not have atoned for the WrestleMania main event because really nothing could atone for that stinker plus the usage of Travis Scott. But Cena and Rhodes completely redeemed themselves on Sunday night. This kicked the shit out of that match. It may not have been The Rock and Hulk Hogan, okay, but it had similar vibes at points throughout. Weapons were used, but not overdone. That was important given everything that preceded it. And the street fight stipulation was important just to get this quality of match because it gave enough leeway to overcome Cena's slower pace at age 48. The one negative from a wrestling standpoint is both of their finishers were basically buried. Each kicked out of the other, hitting 3 in succession. Cena even doing one from an avalanche spot. I mean, Cody's got to now come up with something else at this point. It was okay when other people kicked out, but then he hit 3 on Roman Reigns and he won the title and they kind of reestablished it a little bit. But 48-year-old Cena, and I know it's Cena, Super Cena, the whole deal, kicking out of 3 and requiring, 6 or 7 to actually go down. I mean, at that point, you got to move on to a different finisher as far as I'm concerned. But this match basically was everything you could want from a main event involving a guy Cena's age. He told Cody after the match, as I just said, that's the best I had. And it's clear this was booked as a true white meat babyface passing of the torch moment. The code red and Cena's reaction to accomplishing it was probably my favorite spot. But I also loved how the crowd reacted to the pile driver, which may have, by the way, been a callback to Cena and CM Punk in 2013. There was also all this storytelling with Cody's decisions to use the turnbuckle and his attempt to use the WWE title belt and the salute at the end, it was not, "I'm sorry, I love you," but it was Cody showing respect as a babyface to another. And I believe that helped ensure people knew, hey, despite everything I did in this match, I didn't actually turn heel. I'm still a babyface. The Cody Vader spot was a little bit corny and over the top by comparison, but seeing Cena break while doing it basically made it worthwhile. The problem, and this is what I just spoke about a few minutes ago coming out of SmackDown, is that Cena never should have been a babyface going into this match. I totally understand the desire for him to get a huge face entrance and get cheered all match in his last major American Stadium show. But they sacrificed the face turn and the story for basically nothing. As I said earlier, the segment on Friday, it should have occurred after this match, which could have served as a vehicle for the turn to then occur. Cena hands over the title, grabs Mike, thanks Cody for beating some sense into him, explains this was what he needed to knock himself straight, and he got influenced by the wrong people 5 months ago. If that had come after the match, it would have set up even better what came next. But the entire point of turning someone like Cena heel is to pay it off when they turn back face. And that was completely wasted in the opening segment of a TV show, in a promo, rather than in the main event of SummerSlam in a post-match. So again, a huge missed opportunity. Now, I'm finding it difficult to grade this match because, look, the finisher spam was even more over the top than Adam Cole and Johnny Gargano at NXT TakeOver New York. The Crossroads, like I just said, is dead as far as I'm concerned. As Roman said, that move doesn't beat anyone. But there was a gravity to this match where you felt like you were watching something epic and important. They were basically flawless from an in-ring standpoint. The storytelling added another layer to all of it. And despite both guys being faces, neither compromised their morals to get the win. They went to extremes, but they did everything they needed to do to try to walk away with the big prize. This was an entirely different match from Gunther and CM Punk on night one, but I'm ending night two with the same grade. 4.5 stars and an A. I'm going to need to rewatch it. I will settle on something final this Tuesday because there was a lot to digest and it was extremely long. It was also certainly Cena's best match and performance since the AJ Styles feud in 2017. And then for Cody, consider this. He has 2 WWE Championship victories where he's won the title from someone else. They have come over Roman Reigns ending an epic title run and John Cena ending his final title run. That's major, major history right there. And if you had any doubt in your mind or any question in your head about Cody Rhodes being the top dog in WWE, the true white meat babyface, the guy with a rocket strapped to his back, this match basically just confirmed he is not just the quarterback, he's quarterback 1A. There's no one that compares to him on this roster right now, despite CM Punk being very popular and Jey Uso being immensely over and Rhea Ripley, people going crazy for her. Cody Rhodes right now is the guy. He has all of it.
You have it. You couldn't get rid of it. You couldn't sell it if you wanted to. You are it.
Now, as I alluded to earlier, this was not where SummerSlam ended. Rhodes dipped out of the ring so Cena could get a standing ovation from the fans. That was going perfectly well until all of a sudden, Brock Lesnar's music hit, leading to what I can only describe as a seismic pop. Michael Cole screamed, "Holy shit," on commentary, unbleeped. Lesnar indeed appeared, methodically stalked around ringside. He kept his eyes locked on Cena the entire time. He ultimately ran into the ring. Cena swung and missed. Lesnar delivered a single F5, and the show ended with him standing tall. So let's start with evaluating this on its face from a wrestling standpoint, okay? I understand wanting to end the show with a shocking headline, but this completely overshadowed both Cody beating Cena, an epic moment, and Cena completing his last SummerSlam, which really should have been able to stand on its own. Given he just turned face 48 hours earlier, and we spent 5 months with this guy getting booed, it would have been real nice for Cena to go out as a big-time face at the end of the show, especially considering you didn't really give us that moment on this program. You wasted it Friday night on SmackDown. Lesnar returning was undoubtedly a shock. But outside of the music hitting and him appearing, I just kind of found myself uninterested. There were many times in the past where Lesnar would return and I would pop at hearing his music because he's a crazy force and he's extremely talented. But I'd roll my eyes because under Vince McMahon, that meant that inside of a week or two, Lesnar was about to be champion again, and he wouldn't even show up on TV with the title, and the entire, let's say, Raw main event division would be ruined because of it. Now, that has not been as much of an issue with Lesnar under Paul Levesque. He's actually been booked way better. But when he signed off, which we didn't know was a sign-off at the time, against Roman Reigns 2 years ago at this event, it seemed like the perfect retirement moment. And I said, okay, that's it for this guy. The perfect run. He put over Reigns. He was a little protected. He upturned an entire ring with a tractor. Like, that's it. That's a good way to go out. But beyond that, now Lesnar's returning, not just to WWE. He's returning in August and immediately feuding with Cena, who has done nothing but wrestle nostalgia matches during this run, with Rhodes being, of course, the lone exception. Royal Rumble, Elimination Chamber, Cody twice, Randy Orton, R-Truth twice, CM Punk, and now Lesnar? Now, look, perhaps he'll put over someone like Braun Breaker in his retirement match, but I was hoping for some fresh matchups on this final run, and with Lesnar now involved, it feels like we may not get more than one, if we even get one. So I'm going to be real curious to see the reasoning behind this in kayfabe. Why did Lesnar return to specifically attack Cena? That has to hit. Now, to be fair, Triple H continues to claim that Cena is writing his own final chapter. He's fighting exactly who he wants to fight. And if that is actually true, fair enough. I can't argue with WWE giving Cena the opportunity to choose his opponents and choose the way his final run kind of plays out. He's given everything to WWE. Still, WWE is so hot, despite creative being so up and down in 2025, that I just look at this and I wonder, why was Lesnar necessary? So my hope is that somehow this is a one-off match. Maybe for Crown Jewel, because it's a stadium show in Australia. Cena is booked on it. I would presume tickets are not selling great. Even last time they were in Perth, they didn't sell incredibly well until the end. They really started picking up the pace. And maybe they can even make this a retirement match for Lesnar. Cena's like, hey, I'm going out, and if that's what you want to fight me, then I'm going to put you out of your misery as well. Cena retires Lesnar, and then 2 months later, Cena gets retired himself. I'm just looking for silver linings from an interest standpoint, because again, as much as I have historically liked Brock Lesnar, the performer, despite not liking the way Lesnar had been booked for the majority of his career. Despite that, even Sunday night, seeing him come back to WWE TV, the initial pop, the shock was, oh my God, I can't believe this. But then once I thought about it for 10 seconds, and I'm just talking about from a wrestling standpoint right now, I was like, oh, Brock's back. Like, it didn't juice me up at all. Now, moving past the wrestling aspect, returning Lesnar like this is obviously problematic. You'll remember he was named along with Vince McMahon, John Laurinaitis, and others in the Janelle Grant lawsuit, which ultimately led to McMahon's ouster from WWE. Now, I don't have the latest information on that. I don't recall reading the amended lawsuit, but I do remember in the initial version, Vince was allegedly texting Brock about Janelle, basically saying Brock could have her as part of the deal to re-sign with WWE. He also allegedly texted Lesnar pictures of her, and I believe Lesnar may have sexted her, asking her to send him some, let's say, vulgar media. Now, Lesnar never actually did anything criminal, and he's not accused of doing anything criminal. He's not a named defendant in the lawsuit. Let's be crystal clear about that. But he did text something about setting a play date with her, and supposedly the only reason it didn't happen was a snowstorm. But it apparently never happened after that either, even though there was plenty of time for it to potentially happen. It is really tough to read intent from text. It is entirely possible Lesnar was playing along and placating Vince with no intention to actually do something with her. And this is the key. It's entirely possible, perhaps even likely, that Brock had no idea Grant was allegedly, let's say, a coerced participant in all of this stuff. But it's also entirely possible he knew some of these things. The whole situation is damning. But it's definitely far, far greater of a gray area with Brock than it was with Vince, who is accused of way more heinous shit, and it's all directly related to Vince. So it's important that we look at this on its face with the alleged facts from the lawsuit and the actual accusations, rather than just grouping Brock in with Vince, assuming he did the same stuff and was party to it and knew everything that was happening behind the scenes. I'm not saying he didn't, but there's no proof that he did, and he is not a named defendant, and he is not accused of doing anything. Either way, this is another real questionable look for WWE. This on the back of Paul Levesque at the White House, on the back of platforming who WWE has platformed over the last year. All again, I will remind you, with a seeming lack of understanding that the WWE audience is not the UFC audience. So I didn't want Lesnar back from a wrestling standpoint or a personal standpoint. And yet, that's where we stand coming out of SummerSlam. Just another reason probably why Levesque canceled the actual press conference portion of the post show, because he certainly didn't want to answer questions about this. I promise you he did not want to answer questions about other things he was up to this week. And when you kind of put a picture together, the totality of people that Levesque surrounded himself with and brought back to WWE, I mean, if people have a bad taste in their mouth about this company, about the product right now, I completely understand it. And that's outside of the creative and the booking and the stuff that we both love and criticize, because there's plenty of it both on this SummerSlam as a whole, and WWE week to week right now. So to wrap this up on a more positive note, okay, circling back to put a pin in heel Cena, which is now dead and buried. That character's gone, okay? Let's just take a quick look back at how this run went. Elimination Chamber was incredible. The road to WrestleMania, up and down. I would say mostly a thumbs up, but barely. WrestleMania, a massive failure with The Rock not showing up when he was the linchpin to the entire turn. Travis Scott's involvement obviously made it even worse. The Randy Orton feud was good, but it left a lot to be desired. The R-Truth stuff worked just as an interim in-between deal. The CM Punk feud and match was easily the highlight outside of the turn itself, this despite the fact that it happened at Night of Champions. But no matter what went down, the failure at WrestleMania and the inability to capitalize with a full babyface turn at the end, it's going to leave a sour taste in fans' mouths when you think back on heel John Cena. But certainly the turn itself and the CM Punk stuff, those were moments that were created by WWE. And we will circle back to talking about moments in relation to WWE at the end of this show. Putting a final bow on all of this for Cody, he got 100% cheered on the post show. Fans even chanted Dusty at one point, got him choked up and teary-eyed. They also chanted Homelander at him, and he completely brushed all of that aside. So Cody comes out of WrestleMania a babyface, despite getting booed for most of the match. He's also the new WWE champion. His second reign. We will see how long this one lasts. So we are what now? 30 minutes into the show, and we've only touched on the main event. All right, we got a lot more to discuss from SummerSlam Night 2, but before we get to that, allow the Silver King to remind you that here at Getting Over,
I happen to love the number 5.
and I hope you do as well, because for $5 a month or $50 for the entire year, you can become an official Getting Overhead. Just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover, sign up. You'll get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reactions to every major show, and exclusive news analysis every week. Again, that is buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. We're a free show and an ad-free show. This is the only way we make even pennies for all of our time. Please help support the continuation of the podcast and support the Silver King and Vintage as well. Let's move to what I would consider the co-main event, even though it actually opened the show. The Women's World Championship, Naomi defending against Io Sky and Rhea Ripley. As I said, this opened. Ripley was out first. Naomi got an electric guitar entrance, which was extra special because it was her father, Shawn, playing her to the ring. That's got to be a first in WWE history. And that was incredible for her. She looked great. She was all cautioned out. And you know the Silver King likes that. Naomi played chicken shit early. She wound up dominating both of them, even biting Rhea's thumb before hitting disaster kick Heatseeker on the apron and a flying blockbuster. The faces finally teamed up before getting a standing ovation just for fighting one-on-one. Io countered Riptide into an inside cradle before hitting a huge poison Rana. Ripley answered with a huge Razor's Edge and a powerbomb, only for Sky to take out both with a springboard moonsault ringside. Rhea prevented over the moonsault, pushing Io into the top of the ring post. Naomi capitalized with a split-legged moonsault on Rhea. She moved just in time to avoid Io flying at her with over the moonsault, which is what happened at WrestleMania with Bianca Belair. Ripley ate it instead. Naomi hit that underhook seated slam for a false finish. Naomi then depleted Io with an uncommon for her pump knee. Rhea immediately capitalized with a Glasgow kiss and Riptide for a 2.99 broken fall. Ripley booted Sky's head off before cannonballing Naomi off the ring apron. Io retaliated with a tope suicida-style sunset flip powerbomb, putting Rhea into Naomi ringside. Hell of a sequence there. Ripley then caught Io on the ropes for an avalanche Riptide all the way into the middle of the ring. But Naomi pulled her off at the cover. She did a high-angle roll-up with a full off-camera grab of the tights to retain her title in 17 minutes. Michael Cole said that this was legal because it was a no DQ match, because it's a triple threat. That's not true. An illegal cover is an illegal cover. It would have been stopped if the referee saw it. The referee didn't see it, and Naomi retained. Exceptional triple threat that thankfully did not wade into the no disqualification rules, given everything else remaining on the show. Only gripe is I wish they got more time. 5 more minutes, and you begin approaching a different level of match potentially. The story of the match here was Rhea again falling short of beating Io, again due to no fault of her own. Naomi basically cheated to beat her. It was the expected finish, Naomi stealing the win, but it was a bit surprising to see her pin Rhea. Why? Well, look, Mommy in the Bank still exists. But the fact that Ripley got pinned, it would seem to give her no leg to stand on for a one-on-one rematch, at least not initially. As we said on the Ultimate Preview, Naomi absolutely had to win this match. All 3 women were booked as championship caliber coming out of this. Naomi getting that long run of offense at the start, it was crucial to basically immediately put her on the same plane as the other two, given they were coming off that epic at Evolution. Io and Rhea again proved they are straight up wrestling soulmates, and they both had potential winning sequences interrupted. Again, 5 more minutes, we're potentially having a different conversation about this match, but by the time it ended, it was the second best match we had gotten at SummerSlam this weekend. 4.25 stars and an A. It was never going to top WrestleMania or Evolution, but it totally stood on its own, and they deserve a lot of credit. Intercontinental Championship, Becky Lynch defending against Lyra Valkyria. No disqualification, no countout, with a stipulation that Lyra cannot challenge for the title again as long as Becky holds it if Valkyria loses the match. Becky got a new entrance theme authored by the Wonder Years, which is apparently the name of the band. Straight rock, maybe a little bit alternative. Not my type of music, but the chorus hit really well. I could absolutely see people singing her to the ring with this in like 7, 8, 10 years from now. Short-term loss of her epic theme that we love from back in the day for, I would say, a long-term potential gain as long as they have extended rights with this track. Now, this was third on the card, and it was put in an unenviable spot after tables, ladders, and chairs. Extremely rough card building with this. Lynch grabbed the kendo stick early, so Valkyria outdueled her with a crowbar. Becky did a Dublin grin with a chain and then ran Lyra into the steel steps. She had a baseball swing, but missed a golf swing with a kendo stick. Then Lyra got worn out with a chair before her hands got zip-tied as Bex teed off on her with a wrench. Lynch then put her hands over the top of the ring post, shattered a kendo stick on her stomach so quickly, she actually had to go get a new one for more shots. Lyra got her arms around Becky for a real gnarly belly-to-belly suplex. It looked like one hand slipped out of the zip tie here, but Lyra put it back in. And it's unfortunate that that happened. She is not a long-term pro who knows to basically how to cover this, and she should have been better. But the real problem was commentary harping on it as much as they did, drawing attention to it. And also production not changing the camera shot so that when she had to put her hand back in the zip tie, she was able to actually do it. So just a really rough spot in the middle of this match. Production in WWE is so hot and cold right now. It is unbelievable. There were like 3 times, and I would say the opening hour of this night of SummerSlam, where Michael Cole's mic, I don't know what happened. If he just stopped talking himself or he got muted or I don't know what happened, but it was like 3 or 4 different times in the first hour, and it was really, really odd. Anyway, back to this match. Lyra leapt off a chair for a drop kick and hit a moonsault off the second rope, which is insane when you consider she couldn't actually use her arms. Valkyria removed the top turnbuckle, later caught Lynch with a fire extinguisher. Now, it seemed like she was supposed to use the fire extinguisher to break the zip tie that her hands were stuck in, but she wasn't able to do it. So the camera did switch this time. She had to crawl underneath the ring, where I'm sure someone cut them off her. A bit cheap to not show it, but they moved on. Lynch ate a drop kick through the ropes before Valkyria countered a manhandle slam with Nightwing off the steps ringside. Becky avoided Lyra into the very turnbuckles she exposed, then hit manhandle slam into a pair of open chairs for a false finish. Lynch drove her head into an open chair, then stuck her through the seat of a chair and kicked her head a bunch. Then she used that trap to run Lyra ribs first into the desk, trapping her in it. Like, she put 2 of the legs in the desk and Lyra's body is there, so she's standing like perpendicular with the desk. She jumps off the table, stomps the back of the chair, squashes Valkyria, dents the chair. And I was like, did she just take all the wind out of her lungs? Like, this looked crazy. It was an absolutely insane spot. Unfortunately, the crowd was so distracted during this match. Some people were doing a wave. Others were yelling at people for doing a wave. They did not pay attention to this match. This was one of the craziest spots on all SummerSlam week as far as I was concerned. Becky grabbed the crowbar then, and she's looking at Lyra like, okay, well, I'm just going to murder you. This is it. I'm going to end your life. But Bayley was slightly late grabbing it out of her hands from the crowd. Lynch held up the 4, screamed that Valkyria was at fault for everything. Bayley seemed to consider actually using the crowbar, but she threw it down. Becky tried punching her with a steel chain, but Bayley beat her down, screaming that she took everything from her. Lynch tried to pull herself up with a table when suddenly Valkyria flew out of nowhere, hitting her peripeteia from out of the picture through the table. Manhandle slam and Nightwing both got countered. Bayley grabbed the steel chain. She was set to punch Becky when she was running at her into the ropes, but Becky ducked. Lyra got clocked when she followed, and Lynch hit manhandle slam to retain the title in 26 minutes. Now Valkyria can no longer challenge for the strap as long as Lynch is champion. And holy hell, did these ladies tear apart this ring. What an awesome, brutal match. Lyra took an absolute beating from start to finish. I lost count of the kendo stick shots. If you told me she broke a rib or something on that chair stomp, I would have totally believed you. She was nearly booked as strong in defeat as Gunther was in night 1. It took everything to put her down. As the match was concluding, I assumed Lyra was winning and was going to say that she looked like a badass, but got a pretty cheap victory due to the Bayley interference. Because Bex owned Lyra during this match. She dominated her, kicked the absolute shit out of her, all within the rules. I wanted Lynch to win coming in, because putting a babyface against a no challenge stipulation, it is not done frequently enough. But the way this match played out, I was even happier that Becky won, because the victory would have been totally hollow for Lyra. As we reported on buymeacoffee.com/gettingover, there were plans for Bayley to be involved in SummerSlam, which is why she was not booked for this show. And it now makes so much more sense why we did not get Becky and Bayley one-on-one either here or at another PLE coming into this. Frustrating that the anticipated singles match will not come at a Big 4 show or Evolution, but better to get it than not get it at all. And it seems like we're going to get it at one of these other PLEs before the year is out. The key critique in terms of this match, it has nothing to do with Becky or Lyra or Bayley. It has entirely to do with Levesque. It was straight up booking malpractice to put this match immediately after TLC in the middle of a 3 hardcore match stretch. This is the spot where the men's Intercontinental Championship should have been run. A palate cleanser, with this then coming after it. Or it should have been run night 1, given the intense amount of hardcore matches on this show. We said this in the lead up. It was crystal clear from the moment the cards were announced. There was no reason to basically do 5 no DQ stipulation matches on one night of SummerSlam and none on the other night, especially because the main event was a street fight and you had TLC that you were putting on this show. This match probably should have been switched out with the women's tag team match from night one. And if you didn't want to do that, then what you needed to do was flip one of the men's matches, let's say the steel cage match with Solo Sikoa and Jacob Fatu, for like Sami Zayn and Karrion Kross. No, that match does not need to be on night 2 of SummerSlam, but at least it was a clean match, and it would have again been a palate cleanser to get everyone fully back around for this, which deserved every bit of attention that could have been put on it. So, like I said, a straight up horrible match card building decision from Triple H here. Zero question about that. Even beyond the card placement, and that certainly had something to do with what I'm about to say, the crowd was dog shit throughout this match. They were probably worse during this match than anything else on the 2-night SummerSlam. And they deserve blame. But they were, again, hyped and hungover from TLC, and I have to imagine that played into the reception. There was an element at the end of this match that commentary didn't mention. Bayley had enough time to actually break the fall after screwing up and punching Lyra instead of Becky. She chose not to. I really hope Bex calls her out on that Monday night, because that can easily be written as Bayley seeing it as an opportunity to eliminate a potential challenger. That's if it was not purposefully done, which it certainly might have been. But look, I loved Becky winning. Like I said, you can't do a character about holding people down if you drop the title after a couple months with a stipulation like that. Lyra, she will get her big time win over Becky one day. There's no reason to rush it. She actually already has one in NXT. So maybe it'll come when Becky is one of the world champions and Lyra beats her. I saw people complaining, well, Lyra didn't get anything out of this. This young lady, okay, who was basically doing nothing on the main roster, despite being Intercontinental Champion, had major PLE matches with arguably the greatest women's wrestler of all time, and is now getting major babyface pops regularly from WWE fans. Just because she didn't win the feud and take the title at the end doesn't mean this was all for naught. People need to open their minds a little bit more into like everything that goes into wrestling, both building characters and building superstars and titles and all this type of stuff. The Intercontinental Championship, Lyra did great winning it first. Becky is elevating it into a title that actually matters. While I have and will say other matches on this card should have been longer on this show, as much as I love Becky and Lyra, this one probably could have been 5 minutes shorter. I'm impressed they gave us 26 minutes for a mid-card title match, don't get me wrong. But the Women's World Championship and TLC, they both could have used 3 extra minutes. Take 6 off this, give it to those. I think all 3 matches would have been better off for it. I'm at 4 stars, A-. A match that could have been an all-timer if better positioned, better commentated, and better produced. And of course, no mess up with the zip tie. But despite all of that, for me, this was absolutely a straight up
Banger.
But there were so many elements working against it, it just struggled to compare with some of the other matches on this card. Last note on the women, because this is the final time we're going to speak about them on this episode, WWE really needs to start featuring them on the same level as men. Not just when it comes to main events, but amount of TV time and number of matches on PLEs. You cannot tell me that something like, let's just say, Stephanie Vaquer against Bayley. I'm just throwing out a random pairing from Raw. You cannot tell me that wouldn't have been a better, more compelling match than some of the men's stuff we got across these 2 nights of SummerSlam. The women's division in WWE right now is insane. It absolutely must get more time. And if you don't want to make it 50-50 because metrics tell you the men sell better, let's say, okay, make it 60-40. Because while the women definitely got 4 of 12 matches across these 2 nights, they got 33%. So they're almost at that 65-35, let's say. They don't get equal time on TV to tell these stories, to get fans excited for these matches. And again, they still deserve more. So let's get them to 60-40. And let's see how that goes, because I guarantee you, when you look back on the last 2 months of WWE, the main roster I'm talking about, the women have been carrying this product. Don't get it twisted. WWE Tag Team Championship match. Wyatt Six against Andrade and Rey Fenix, the Street Profits, Fraxium, Motor City Machine Guns, and DIY in a 6-team, 12-man tables, ladders, and chairs match. No issue for me, this match only getting a video package on SmackDown. There was not much more build they could have done, and the video showed off the talents of all 6 teams rather than focus on just a couple. The Dudley Boys and Hardy Boys were both ringside for this match. Unfortunate, it could not have been all 3 teams on the 25-year anniversary, but we know why. WWE also promoted the TNA Tag Team title match between those teams. That's going to be happening at Bound for Glory, I believe. So pretty good placement there for TNA. Now, this was second on the show with all the challengers ganging up on the 6. Oh, everyone matched, by the way, which was important. The Profits did a get the table spot. I don't think fans really noticed it, but they stacked 4 tables. What's weird is these 4 tables all had the Slim Jim logo on it. None of the other tables that were used in the match did. And it's just like, if you're going to put it on tables, why are they not all Slim Jim tables? Are you getting them from different manufacturers? These tables also, the 2 base tables for this stack that was built, they had holes in them in which to insert the legs. Now, that was definitely safer, but it was also way too obvious. Andrade tried to lift Phoenix to grab the titles without a ladder. He put him on his shoulders. He actually came really close. They hit Stereo 3 Amigos for Eddie Chance. MCMG did tandem drop kicks on Joe Gacy, who took a sick header into a chair. Johnny Gargano murked him with one final beat over the ropes into a table before Dexter Lumis basically hit a seated senton on Montez Ford over the ropes into a table. Phoenix followed suit with a ringside frog splash off the top rope, putting Nathan Frazier through a table. Then Axiom took Angelo Dawkins out of the corner with a Spanish fly through a table ringside that Tommaso Ciampa avoided. Holy shit. Candice LeRae then runs down. She tries to climb a ladder. B-Fab intercepts her with a Uranagi off of it into a chair. Nikki Cross takes her down with a backdrop off of the ladder. Candice respawns, gets a hand on the straps, only to get knocked. I think it was Ciampa got knocked into Gargano, who was holding the ladder for his wife. And she gets knocked off of this freaking ladder into a ringside ladder propped between the ring and the announce table, crashes straight through it. It was absolutely incredible. No question about it. She is a total freaking badass. Eric Rowan interfered next. This was our concern, dude. The Profits teed off with chairs, then pounced his ass through a table. Ciampa wound up hanging on the titles in midair. Frazier attempted to spear him, but Ciampa pulled himself up to avoid the spear, and Frazier just took a dive right onto the canvas. That is straight up insane core strength that he showed in that spot, especially midway through a wrestling match. Uncle Howdy pushed the Profits and DIY off ladders. DIY flew through the 4 stack of tables. Howdy tried grabbing the straps, but put a mandible claw on Frazier, who caught him on top. Andrade murked Howdy with a sunset flip powerbomb off the ladder into another propped ladder between the ropes. The 6 hit their finisher on Phoenix, grabbing the titles to ultimately retain.
Oh, that was a great matchup, but the ending sucked.
Extremely disappointing anticlimactic finish to do a title retention with the team that got arguably the worst reaction in the entire match. And the decision was made even worse by the booking being exactly what we expected as the worst case scenario coming in. The 6 just using their numbers advantage given the no DQ nature of the match. I know they're heels, even though the program that turned them heels didn't actually air on TV. But that was cheap as hell. And yes, I understand the entire gimmick is basically 6 against the entire division. I got it. It doesn't change the immense quality of this match, which was an incredible car crash with tons of awesome spots. The best was the sequence of 4 high-risk moves into the tables ringside. Axiom and Dawkins landing that Spanish fly was straight up ridiculous. And obviously, we have to give major props to Candice for putting her body on the line like that. Even more of a brutal bump than Chelsea Green took at Money in the Bank last year. Candice is a beast, and she just did this for the love of the game. She didn't have to do this at all. It's just unfortunate that a title change wasn't booked, and more so that there was so much interference. I just want you to think about this, okay? You had a record 12 dudes in this match. The last thing we needed were 5 additional people getting involved, even if it was expected. It was literally 1 person per minute, 17 people in 17 minutes. Less is more. But if you're going to have that much involvement, okay, you need to book a longer match. It ultimately felt a bit rushed, and it absolutely paled in comparison, for me, to the match of the year contender we got on SmackDown a few months ago. I was legitimately left wanting more here, which I was not left wanting more in the other TLC, which I just thought was perfect from start to finish. Still a great match, absolutely worthy of SummerSlam. I'm so glad all these guys got on the card. I'm at 4.25 stars. I might move this up or down a quarter star on rewatch. I'm not completely sure yet. There was a 60-second stretch in this match that was as chaotic as anything we've seen in 2025. And maybe when I'm not, jotting down notes the entire time and I'm sitting and enjoying it, this will play even better than it was with me having to do both at once. That's why I regrade. That's why I do the second look on Tuesday. But this was incredible. And it was an awesome match. The only problem, as I just mentioned, it should not have been second on the show. In fact, we probably, if you had to keep this card exactly as it was with these 6 matches on this show, maybe you put Becky and Lyra second, and then you put TLC third. That would have made a lot more sense. People just would have complained that you did 2 women's matches back-to-back to open the show, which is why they didn't do that. By the way, I just want to say this. I want Candice rewarded coming out of this. She deserves a United States Championship feud against Julia. She doesn't have to win, but this proved she's a badass, and she should be able to parlay that into a couple wins and a number 1 contendership. She is way too good to simply not be wrestling on SmackDown. It's a joke. And speaking of people deserving of stuff, I know I poo-pooed the 6 winning, but it was awesome for Gacy and Loomis to get this moment on a major PLE given their long run to the main roster. Good for them. I also wanted to note DIY were hilarious in their post-show backstage interview. All 3 of them, Gargano, Ciampa, LeRae. This is the DIY we need on TV weekly, and I have a good feeling that they're going in that direction. They would get over massively doing this in front of fans weekly on SmackDown. If you missed it, go find it on social media or YouTube or I guess Peacock. I don't think they show the post-show on Netflix. That's something else I'll talk about on Tuesday. I actually watched both nights of SummerSlam on Netflix, not Peacock, and I'm going to be able to watch Raw this Monday night on Netflix, fingers crossed, without ads as well. So that'll be an experience for us to discuss on the Tuesday show. Men's Intercontinental Championship, Dominic Mysterio defending against AJ Styles. Styles said on the Friday kickoff this may be his last SummerSlam, which I think he signed a 1-year extension of his contract, so that shouldn't be the case, but maybe it will be. We'll find out. Styles got a special entrance hysterically coming out in a lowrider with his own son, who had his hair dyed blonde on top, just like Dominic back in the day. Well played right there. They both wore special gear honoring the 20-year anniversary of the Custody of Dom ladder match between, of course, Rey Mysterio and Eddie Guerrero, which was sick. If the card was planned out better by Triple H, this could have been a ladder match as well. But of course, you couldn't do that with TLC. Styles dominated at the onset. Mysterio avoided phenomenal forearm, caught him running with a Michinoku driver. Styles prevented Three Amigos by countering into a brainbuster on the 3rd attempt. Dom got knees up, preventing a frog splash, hitting a 619 before a flying nothing. Basically got moved into a calf crusher. Dom tried to screw AJ with Guerrero's lie, cheat, and steal spot. He used a steel chair for that. But Styles outsmarted him, kind of, by wrapping it around his own neck. The referee didn't know what to do. What I don't think AJ considered here is this would have been a DQ, and it would have been bad for him because he wouldn't have won the title in the match. But okay, I digress. They both wound up taking purposeful but not blatant low blows before Styles rolled back into calf crusher. Mysterio's boot came off, another callback, and he drilled AJ right in the face with the boot. The referee was distracted by nearly getting run over. Dom followed with a huge frog splash to retain the title in 11 minutes. Despite being a heel, he got a big-time pop for the victory. The post-match showed that Dom had unzipped his boot to create this opportunity, but the boot didn't come off easily enough in the moment. It kind of looked like Styles forced it off of him. Either way, it was the WrestleMania 20 finish, I think it was, with Eddie and Kurt Angle. I'm not entirely sure what I expected, but this left a decent amount to be desired. In kayfabe, Styles has been wanting this match for like 2 months. And rather than wrestle his match, he spends 10 minutes trying to wrestle like he's instead focused on honoring Eddie. This would have been perfectly fine as a TV match on some type of like Guerrero anniversary. But on SummerSlam, it just felt like we got half a match. If the Eddie stuff was a prelude to them getting serious, I get it. Like they start the match that way, then they get serious on the latter half. But that wasn't it. Given the finish, just as I pontificated during the Ultimate preview, I fully expect this to get run back in 4 weeks. Clash in Paris. Styles wins the Intercontinental title in front of a phenomenal crowd. But just because the match will likely get run back doesn't mean it shouldn't have gotten more here. And if this was going to be the match booking, as I said earlier, they also could have put this after TLC before Lyra and Becky. Nonsensical that it was put in the spot that it was. I'm at 3.5 stars and a B. I think there's a little bit of sentimentality that's factored into that. Again, on rewatch, I might adjust it, but it was definitely in the B minus range and definitely not any higher than that. United States Championship, Solo Sikoa defending against Jacob Fatu inside a steel cage. Sikoa was confident backstage on SmackDown in a short promo segment. At the end of it, he really made me laugh out loud. As he walked out of frame, Kathy Kelly said, "I don't know what he means." And Solo yelled back off mic, "Yes, you do." Stopped her in her tracks. I thought that was really good. So also on SmackDown preceding this, we had Jimmy Uso against Tala Tonga. While Def Rebel may suck, they really just don't miss on these bloodline adjacent themes. Tala's was rather generic. It hit hard like the rest. Jimmy got a ton of offense. Tala was so impressive physically, working big against him. Fans were literally on their feet toward the end of this match. Jimmy hit a spear. Tala stopped an Uso splash by grabbing his throat, hitting a chokeslam to win. I thought Tala acquitted himself kind of well here overall. I absolutely hated the chokeslam as a finisher, especially because this dude basically dressed like Kane in red and black. And I know that that style of gear is what he wore in New Japan. He frequently wore it, though, with gold or blue accents. This was red, and he was red because he was bloodline, but because it was black and red, and he's a tall-ass dude with hair like that, he looked like Kane. The look and that move alone made him come across entirely generic rather than something special. I believe his finisher, in New Japan was a T-bomb, like a neck-hanging bomb, which looked great being done by a dude who's 6'8+. A simple chokeslam with Jimmy barely getting off the ground made him look like a facsimile of Kane, like I said. Really disappointing end to a match that could have actually helped make him. MFT attacked after the bell. Solo demanded the cage be lowered. That happened. But then the cage just stopped by the top rope for a good 30 seconds, long enough of a delay for Jacob to get run into the ring. He got the cage lowered the rest of the way. Sikoa and Tala dipped out. Fatu destroyed JC Mateo and Tonga Loa 1-on-2. The crowd was red hot for this on Friday night. Even though I'm rooting for all of these guys, I just haven't been moved by this at all. And that brings us to Sunday. Sikoa dominated at the early onset before Fatu went on a run and hit 2 double jump moonsaults for a false finish. Commentary pointed out it was the first time anyone has kicked out of that move, which I think is technically true, but most times he hits it are in like non-match attacks. MFT came down at this point, so Jimmy Uso surprised out of the crowd. He landed some shots, but again got murked by Tala. Jacob had a chance to walk out. Instead, he slammed the door closed, only to eat a blindside Samoan spike for a false finish. MFT then climbed the cage as Jacob was busy taking out Tonga Loa. Tala caught him with handcuffs on the top rung. Fatu broke the chain in about 30 seconds. The camera completely missed it live. Commentary did call it out, but it was in the distance and they just ruined the spot. He then booted the cage door into JC Mateo. With both guys fighting by the door, Tala booted the door back into both of their heads, but Jacob fell backwards and Solo basically fell out of the ring to retain the title in 13 minutes. With Solo and Tala outside watching, Jimmy beat up JC, threw him in the ring, and then he closes the door so that Jacob could destroy him and Loa. Jimmy, why he wouldn't try to help this guy that he's supporting, I have no idea. And then you have MFT, which has like 3 more members. Despite having the numbers advantage, they make no effort to go help their dudes. Jacob wound up climbing to the top of the structure and hitting them both with a huge standing moonsault. Huge pop at the end, but that doesn't factor into the match grade because that was in the post-match. Now look, the build for this match left a ton to be desired. And as I said on the Ultimate preview, it was one of 3 matches I was somehow anticipating less than Jelly Roll and Logan Paul, which is really saying something. The match itself, unfortunately, followed suit. I'm not going to call it underwhelming because I had real low expectations for it from the onset, but it was easily the worst match of the night, and you could argue it was the worst match of SummerSlam. If not the worst, then the second worst. Sikoa retaining, that was the right decision because he just won the strap, and he'd been doing well with this like comedic turn in his character. But the cage stipulation was annoying and unnecessary, especially on a show that was filled with no DQ matches. The immense interference was eye-rolling, And the action we got, even in a vacuum here, it didn't captivate at all. I'm at 2 stars and a C-, entirely forgettable. Oh, and by the way, I didn't even mention this. Doing a handcuff spot immediately after a zip tie spot, that was the entirety of the match between Becky and Lyra, was straight up ridiculous. And doing them in back-to-back matches was even worse. Do the agents and producers not speak to one another? There was no necessity for the handcuffs to be used in this match. He broke them in 30 seconds. It was Tala could have, leaned over the top of the cage and fought with him on the top for the exact same amount of time. Jacob punches him and he falls down the other side and you do the same spot. The handcuff was absolutely freaking ridiculous. So like I said, 2 stars, C-, either tied for the worst or the worst match of SummerSlam. And that wraps up the entirety of the Night 2 match card breakdown, which brings us to the final segment of the show, our grades. First, I will remind you what we said in terms of pre-show expectation grades. On the Ultimate Preview, Vintage Chris Vanini thought it would be a full A 96 out of 100. I concurred with him on the letter grade, disagreed with the numerical grade. I thought it would be a 95 out of 100. We both thought this card was absolutely loaded top to bottom. For me, the lone exception was, of course, Solo and Jacob. All of you, our listeners, are getting overheads. You had the opportunity to vote in our pre-show poll on social media, Twitter especially, at Getting Overcast, and you basically agreed with us. 79% in the A range, which is massive. 19% B+ to B, 2% B- to C+. That averaged out to a 95.2 out of 100. So a 95, just like the Silver King, and an A. In terms of post-show grades, why don't I go first and then we'll get to your grade that you shared with us on social media. Now, I said on the Ultimate Preview that some bookers excel at one event versus another. And Triple H, to this point in his career being the head man for the WWE main roster, it almost seems like he's put a stamp on SummerSlam as his particular favorite event or his special event that he pulls out all the stops. And I'm not going to say he pulled out all the stops for Night 2 or for SummerSlam in totality, but he definitely tried to. He thought he was doing that. There's no question. Sunday night was a way stronger card than Saturday. Apples to apples, both the way it looked on paper and the way it actually delivered in the ring and with some moments and stuff like that. But it was inherently flawed. And I already mentioned the match card order, so I'm not going to repeat that ad nauseum for the third or fourth time. But I want you to just consider this, okay? Going into the main event, there were shenanigans in 4 of 5 matches. The triple threat, there was a roll-up to steal a win, legal and fair, but kind of cheap, especially given it was a roll-up and not a pinning combination like we saw in the Intercontinental triple threat a few weeks ago. That was the clean match. TLC, interference by 5 people. Women's Intercontinental title, interference. Men's Intercontinental title, cheating. Steel cage match, interference by 4 people, despite it being a steel cage match. Beyond that, the baby faces were 0 for 5 going into the main event, and all 5 titles in those matches had been retained. Now, of course, in the main event, there were no shenanigans, and Cody won, which was basically the exception to the rule for the entire night. But you do need to create more variety than that, even if we are enjoying the matches and the bookings in, let's say, totality. But this is your second biggest show of the year, and Sunday night is your biggest night of that show. And to have that much cheating and interference and messy finishes, even if you're going to deliver solely in the main event, that's really frustrating for me as a viewer. So even though I loved the vast majority of the matches on this card, I thought 4 of them were A- or better. I think I gave 3 A's or better. And the Mysterio and Styles match was just a lot of fun, even if it wasn't great. There's really only one clunker on this entire card. I can't go to the highest level, which would be an A or an A+, but there's no question in my mind that this was better start to finish than night one. Even if the conclusion of night one was probably the most memorable moment from the entire show. That's despite Cena and Rhodes being an excellent match. But that moment with Seth Rollins cashing in the Money in the Bank briefcase on CM Punk after that match with Gunther, which was incredible, it's really tough to beat that, is what I'm trying to explain. And you know what? That actually makes two major shows in a row, where the conclusion of night one, at least in my opinion, outshined the conclusion of night two. The triple threat, of course, at WrestleMania night one, with CM Punk, Roman Reigns, and Seth Rollins, and Paul Heyman turning heel on both Reigns and Punk. Interesting that, of course, you're dealing with some of those same people, and in both cases, they were night one. So that's a long way around for me to say that I'm not at an A+, and I'm not at an A, but I am at an A- for night two of SummerSlam. I'm at a 92 out of 100. I think it's a completely fair grade. It speaks to the match quality, the entertainment value, the excellent main event, but it appropriately knocks points off for the match order, the interferences, and certainly the terrible steel cage match, which is a huge, huge frustration for the Silver King. Now, of course, Vintage is in Italy. He did not have a chance to watch live. We will get his grade at a later date, but all of you are getting overheads. You had the opportunity to vote on social media. 41% said A+ to A, 43% A- to B+. So that's 84% B+ or higher, just to be clear. 12% B to B-, 4% C+ or lower. That averages out to a 93 out of 100, also an A-, 1 point higher than the Silver King. So clearly we all agreed that this show did not live up to our expectation, which was extremely lofty. It is difficult to give a full A expectation grade going into a premium live event or pay-per-view. That's where we all were. It fell short of our expectation, but it still exceeded night one, and that was the expectation as well, and that is ultimately what was delivered. But we didn't just give individual grades for night one and night two. We also gave an overall expectation grade on our ultimate preview. Chris was at an A-, a 93. Your boy, the Silver King, was also at an A-, a 92. Again, one step below him. All of you, our listeners, are getting overheads. We'll go with you first, okay? Your final grades for the entirety of WWE SummerSlam came in at 34% A+ to A, 52% A- to B+, 11% B to B-, 3% C+ or lower. That averages out to a 91.475 out of 100, which actually rounds up to a 92. So you're at a firm A- for the two nights of SummerSlam. And I think this is a really tough decision to make. It's certainly not an A for me, no question about that. I'm right on the border between B+ and A-. I think when you look at SummerSlam in its totality, okay, if you were to pick the best 8 matches of the 12 we got and put them on a single card, I think you're talking about a high A premium live event. So let's kind of do that real quickly. Gunther and CM Punk from night one, Roman Reigns and Jey Uso against Bronson Breakker and Bronson Reed. The Women's Tag Team Championship, Judgment Day against Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair. Yes, to be fair, Randy Orton and Jelly Roll against Drew McIntyre and Logan Paul. Then we move over to night two. You have the main event, Cody Rhodes against John Cena. The Women's Intercontinental Championship, Becky Lynch against Lyra Valkyria. The Women's World Championship, Naomi against Io Sky and Rhea Ripley. And then the TLC match, right? If you had those 8 matches on a singular 4.5 hour card, you're not only talking about like an A show, you're maybe talking about like a 96 out of 100, like an incredible show, maybe even an A+, especially if you opened the show with the Money in the Bank cash in and then you closed with John Cena and Cody Rhodes, the way that went down, and you had the women's match in there and the title changes and the TLC in the middle of the show. I mean, you're talking about an incredible, incredible card. Unfortunately, there were 4 other matches, and they didn't all happen in one night. They were split across 2 different nights. And those other 4 matches, most of them really did not deliver. So I think this is ultimately an A- show now that I'm kind of pontificating about it to this degree. I'm going to go ahead and say a 91 out of 100. It was definitely better than borderline, slightly above that. I don't know that I'm all the way at a 92 or 93. I just keep thinking back to how many individual matches and moments I loved, but each show separately just wasn't necessarily cohesive, and the formatting of night 2, again, the match card and the way that was put together was just really dumb. It just really did not work the way it should have. So look, that wraps up the grade section here for the WWE SummerSlam 2025 instant analysis. I wanted to kind of close on this, okay? I mentioned this on night 1, but WWE creative, it's fallen into a zone right now where it's more focused on making individual moments than telling compelling stories that lead to those moments. Sunday night was another example of that. It's fair to argue that no one can do major moments like WWE. And frankly, they can't, okay? But there's no reason, with as much money and TV time as WWE has, that the scheduling isn't smarter, shoving all those shows into a short window of time. And the creative can't do a better job building from episode to episode, week to week, event to event. As I kind of just alluded to, I wholeheartedly believe, and I've said this many times on the show, that WWE's breakneck schedule from the late spring into the summer played a significant role in some of these booking struggles over the last few months. But even going into WrestleMania, we were less than enamored with much of the storytelling. So WWE and Paul Levesque, they can fillet themselves all they want in the media or on WWE Unreal in terms of the creative and the booking and how smart they are. At the end of the day, Triple H is not booking the product in 2025 as well as he was in 2023 going into 2024. There may be reasons for that. The schedule, interference from Dwayne Johnson and Ari Emanuel, whatever the case might be. But there's problems up and down the card that reveal themselves at major shows more so than they do on weekly TV. And I do hope that WWE, because they seem to listen to the audience and make adjustments and changes, forget what they say on Unreal or what Triple H says in press conferences. You see it in the booking. When people are displeased with something or when they really want someone to get over, WWE generally answers. They do have some people, like an LA Knight, for example, where they're going to feature him a ton, but they're probably just not going to put a world title on him. Combination of they don't believe he can hold it, his age, other people that they want to feature instead. And sometimes as a fan, you just got to say, okay, well, they just don't believe in my guy that way, if you happen to be a huge LA Knight fan. But there's other circumstances where you kind of just look and you wonder, like, what are they doing with this? An example being inserting the Wyatt Six into the SmackDown tag team division that did not need them when the Raw tag team division absolutely could have used them. And I truly hope coming out of SummerSlam, they're hearing some of the criticisms and understanding some of the fan displeasure. Forget about the political stuff and all that. But with the way this card on Sunday night was built and the way the women need to get more time, the lack of solid storytelling for the WWE Women's Championship, convolution with some other storylines, the bloodline stuff is really just not working creatively the way it used to, especially given who's involved in that right now. I hope they really take a wholesale look at what they're doing, because what they actually have from the end of SummerSlam through the end of 2025 is time. There's only a couple premium live events between now and the end of the year. I believe it's just Clash in Paris, Crown Jewel, and Survivor Series War Games. Because Clash in Paris is August 31st, there's no PLE in September. I want to say there's a 6-week build between Clash in Paris and Crown Jewel. And then you're going to get like a 7-week build between Crown Jewel and Survivor Series. So they have every single opportunity to get their storytelling and their booking back on track. There's probably going to be one Saturday night's main event for the final quarter of the year, but that's easy enough. That's a TV special. They're going to have every opportunity to get their booking and their storytelling back on track before they move into 2026. Obviously, they'll have the Royal Rumble and Elimination Chamber and WrestleMania at the start of that year. But like I said, 3 premium live events over the final 5 months of the year. And unless they add a show, there's only going to be 6 between now and WrestleMania 42, 6 in 9 months, which is a far cry from the overloading of premium live events and special events that we've had in the spring and summer. So again, fingers crossed that they're going to get all this back on track. I give them a fair opportunity at doing that. And certainly there is going to be an absolute ton for us to discuss this Tuesday, the next WWE episode of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. We will take a second look at the entirety of SummerSlam, night 1 and night 2. Second thoughts from the Silver King. We'll see if Vintage had the ability to watch the shows, and if he can contribute, we'll try to get him on. We'll also take your questions, comments, and thoughts. If you haven't sent them in already, you can do so on Twitter at Getting Overcast on Blue Sky, at Getting Over. You can also email us, gettingoverpod@gmail.com. I cannot guarantee that we'll get you all on the show because we get hundreds of messages, but I promise you we'll get as many of you on the show as possible based on my pretty busy schedule, if I'm being completely candid. I mentioned both those social media accounts, at Getting Overcast on Twitter, at Getting Over on Blue Sky. If you follow us there, you will also get episode drops, news, analysis, highlights, and all of that good stuff. And you can vote in pre- and post-show polls around premium live events like the ones I just mentioned here on the Instant Analysis. Don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube at Getting Overcast. Full-length audio episodes, full-length video interviews, all of them on YouTube at Getting Overcast. Please remember, here at Getting Over,
It's all about Defy.
so head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave a 5-star rating on Apple. Take a little extra time. Leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. And please do not forget,
I happen to love the number 5.
I sure hope you do as well. $5 a month, $50 for the entire year. You can become an official Getting Overhead. Just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Sign up. You'll get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reactions to every major show, and exclusive news analysis posts every week. Again, that is buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. We're a free show. We're an ad-free show. We would greatly appreciate your financial support, and you get some extras for doing it. So why the hell not? Thank you all for listening to this 2025 WWE SummerSlam Night 2 Instant Analysis. If for some reason you missed Night 1, it is waiting for you in the podcast feed. As mentioned, we'll be back on Tuesday with your next complete WWE show. At this point, it is time for the Silver King to rest his voice, sign off, and leave you with just 3 final words. Bye for now.